This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
Hey, you're in for a treat today. This is going to be such a special episode. I'm so honored to have my guest on today. He is really he's just awesome in personal growth, professional growth. Talk about servant leadership. I mean, I think he epitomizes that when I checked out his website and all he's done. I thought I was in maybe a group of high achievers, but I think I have a lot left to do, and I can't wait to hear about. I think it's called StatGuard Plus. Came from an idea that he now has on the shelves at Lowe's and Home Depot, and I'm honored to have him on the show. And let alone his talent in singing and performing. Mr. David Osk, thanks for joining me, brother.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Of course, you and I have been talking for just a few minutes, and
yeah,
I just absolutely love your vibe. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
Thanks, man. Hey, tell me about this StatGuard Plus product you actually came up with and got into the market.
You know, so technically it wasn't my idea. My brother-in-law called me one day, and I was working doing facilities management for a large telecom chain, and anyway, he called me one day. He was working for banks in South Florida that owned foreclosed properties, and they would, of course, get them back up for sale. And then the real estate agents would go in to, show the properties. And of course, they'd want it at 65 degrees in the house to make it nice and cold for everybody. And so they started using thermostat guards, which are nothing new there. But they kept losing the key. And so he called me and he said, "Where do I get a stat guard with a combination lock?" He said, "Nobody can, keep track of these little keys." Well, I knew instantly, well, that's a novel idea because we use, thermostat covers across our entire portfolio. And just because if you've got, more than two people in any space, right?
Yes.
People are jacking around with a thermostat. And well, so long story short, he and I went into business together, and I ended up buying him out a few years after we, kind of started, the business and kind of fooling around. We had no idea what we were doing. And he went on to do a construction company. And then, I just kind of kept sticking with it and just trying to figure it out. I'd always wanted to own my own business and, just do that. And I just believed in the idea. By God's grace, I didn't give up, and we ended up here. We are 10 years later and 3,700 stores and, and counting. And I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity. We live in land of the free and the home of the brave, and it's, there's opportunity everywhere. And it's not, of course, it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work. And most of the time, the hard work is the goofball in the mirror that you're having to have an argument with to push through hard things. And so, but yeah, it's been a heck of a journey.
And I imagine it's probably big for not just corporations and companies who want to keep control of their thermostats, but I imagine because we have a couple ourselves, Airbnb business and vacations by owner, they must want this, right? I mean,
yeah. It's funny. I've actually had friends that would be on vacation in an Airbnb or something like that, and they'll send a picture of a thermostat guard because it was like covering the swimming pool controls or something, right? Or the thermostat, and they'd be like, "Hey, is this yours?" And I'm like, "If it has a combination lock, it's mine." And I'm sure, so it's pretty cool. I'm really thankful to have the opportunity. We just actually got into the True Value distribution chain.
Oh, man, that's big.
Those stores are all individually owned, of course. So we're having to, reach out to different owners and so on, and just get on their radar and try to make, build some relationships that way.
Hey, it's another way of you're serving, man. I think, and then what you said earlier, man, I've been trying to, in the last 5-10 years, my walk with the Lord has been better and better each and every day. And I just think, man, I was thinking today, so when we want to, because I think we really need to bring God back to the country, right? And I think entrepreneurs are going to have a big impact on that because taking advantage of what we are offered and our opportunity in America, and that's going to give us a bigger voice and a bigger reach if the more power we have to reach out to more people in a godly way, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was talking about, just, being authentic, being who you are, right?
Yeah.
If you're a Christian, right, and if you make hamburgers, well, don't put a cross on your hamburgers, and especially if your hamburgers are crap, make the you know what I mean? Make the best hamburger
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
That's right.
possibly make. And
Right.
so the way I kind of look at, being a Christian and operating in the marketplace is I want to be someone who acts with integrity, right? Who
Right. Yeah.
treats people like I want to be treated, to make a product that is, obviously my product causes people to not send money to their power company. They can spend it on their teams at work, or, take their family on vacation, or whatever they want to do with
That's
it.
right.
And I feel like, there's a lot of people that give a lot of lip service, out there for, whatever it might be, and even Christians, right? If we're real about it. But
Yeah.
I think the real testimony is what Micah says, right? Do justice, do
Yes.
do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. And I hope that as I operate not only with my wife and kids and, people that I say that I love, but my own customers, right? That I'm
Yeah.
treating them like I want to be treated. The golden rule. It's right from Scripture.
I say it not in a judgmental way, but I always tell my wife, I go, these people were just in church. I can't even get out of the parking lot before they're cutting me off or giving me the finger. Right? Can we
Yeah.
just get to the main road?
Well,
I-
and it's funny too, because I think in general, we're kind of worse off than we think we are in some ways. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
about you, but I love listening to some of the old church fathers and even some
Yeah.
philosophers, like, I think it was it Dostoevsky who talked about this idea that we're a mixed bag of human contradictions.
Yes.
It's like the things like Paul says, right? The stuff that I want to do, I don't do. The things I don't want to do, I end up doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that in some ways, the sins of omission or commission, we're so blind. And at the same
Yeah.
time, I love to celebrate the fact that we are, Tim Keller says we are more loved than we could ever dare hope.
My goodness. And Tim Keller, no, Tim passed away, right?
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a year ago, maybe.
So when I listen to people, I gotta remember that name. So I listen to people, and then I listen intently, and then I'll end up researching what they said. So I listened to the Unashamed podcast with the Robertson family, and so Jace Roberts, he always talks about from Tim Keller. So then I looked up Tim Keller, and then my wife and I we go to bed at night listening to the sermons of Tim Keller, and just so insightful. But yeah, he's awesome, man. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
He does a great job. And I forgot. My pastor, he always he said, God, people, some of these people they've cut me off. He's from Coastline Community Church. He goes, some people have cut me off, and they get in front of me, and I see they have the coastline on their back window. I wish they would just scrape that off.
Isn't it funny?
You got to laugh about it. Oh my goodness. Oh, even Paul said, when you talk about Paul, I like that he said, he's when he's kind of writing to the churches, not that I'm there yet. He's not that I've gotten to where I want to be, but this is the way we should be acting. But and saying to himself, saying that I'm not to the point where I should be. Yeah. And I think that's kind of a humble way of telling people. But hey, let's talk a little bit about your because I did stand-up comedy for 25, 30 years, and so around performers and performance in Los Angeles. And when I heard your song, The Prayer, with your partner, is that Abby? What's her name?
Abby. Well, it's Abby Scott is her maiden name. Abby Eaton is her married name. So Chris Eaton is the guy that produced my last record. Her husband, Chris, and he's they're British, and he's the guy that wrote like Breath of Heaven for Amy Grant, and I mean he's written I don't know how many #1 songs. I mean, down the line from Jessica Simpson to Janet Jackson to Sir Cliff Richard to Vince Gill to Amy, Michael W. Smith. I mean, he's just a phenomenal writer. And so Chris produced my last record. I was actually able to go to England and record the vocals at his place.
Wow.
Which was such a thrill. I've admired his work for, decades.
Yeah.
And, well, of course, his wife, Abby, is just amazing. And she sang The Prayer with me. And of course, that's on my record on YouTube and all that. But she's a phenomenal vocalist.
Man, and that song, and you got the videos out on YouTube. I'm going to point people to it. I'm going to share that link because it's godly blessed for sure. I mean, I listened to that, and I maybe because I saw you initially with your hat on or something. So when I saw you in the video, I thought, wait, is that David? Because that voice
I wear a hat almost every single day. If I go on stage, I'll kind of spice things up a little bit, of course. But I usually like wearing a cap.
So you operate in so many different. I guess I did too. I guess as a cop and a comedian and in leadership. So you're in like many different venues of life. So do you speak on a lot of business, entrepreneurship, leadership, and then singing is totally separate, and that's in like a separate venue you would.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. So quite often the people that know me in the the business realm have no idea that I do music. And I moved from Minnesota to Nashville back in '94, as a vocal major at Belmont, and I've cut 3 records, and I've sung all over the place. It's interesting so I'm 49, and it's been interesting in my 40s. I thought I'd be kind of tapering off, and I've had some of the most exciting musical experiences in my 40s that were way better than my 20s and 30s. And in fact, to the point where I'll say it off camera here or off air, but I'm looking at a non-disclosure agreement that I framed.
Yeah.
I got to sing at a place that they made me sign an NDA that says I can't even talk about it. And it was like a pipe dream.
Wow.
And so, just stuff like that. And truth of the matter is, the good King gives us good gifts, and I'm just grateful to be, and under his care there, and that's all there is to it. He gave. By the way, I'm going to jump into the kind of the deep end of the pool here.
Please jump right in because we are freedom of speech here. We can go where we want to. I'm not beholden to any sponsors.
Well, so what's interesting, you asked me what else do I do, right? So I'm obviously I run a product development business. I'm working on 5 other products right now.
Oh, great!
And I love that space. I'm a creative at heart. That's all there is to it. I had a children's book published probably 5 years ago now.
Wow!
And working on another one, and I just like being creative. One of the things that I've been doing, and So one of the things that I've been doing lately is I work really closely with Dr. Garrett. He is a clinical psychologist, also a believer, just a great guy. And I'm writing a book right now for dads called The Guardians of Grit. And what we're really introducing here is this idea of, what's the difference between resiliency and grit? And how do you establish it in an internal or, as he says, an intrinsic, location as opposed to, external, influence, right? Because a lot of times, I don't know about you, Cliff, but man, much of my life, I wanted to, how should I say it? I wanted to become somebody, and really it was through accomplishments. It was like, I just wanted so desperately to have something in my life that was successful so that, I was a somebody or at least not a nobody,
Right.
And I wouldn't have even known, in my 20s and early 30s that that's what I was doing. I wasn't aware of it, but man, I was being just crushed under that pressure. And it was because I didn't understand authenticity and identity. And so what Dr. Andy has really helped me understand here, in the last, I've known him for about 6 years now, and is, let me back into this just a little bit. So resiliency and grit. Why am I so passionate?
Yeah.
Why am I so passionate about those 2 things? Well, where do we get the word authenticity? It comes from the word author.
Author. Writer. The word.
We didn't make us, right? And it's like, I didn't choose my eye color, my taste buds. And here's the crazy thing. We think land of the free, home of the brave. I didn't choose my personality.
No.
And how do we know that's true? It's because those of us who have children or siblings for that matter, I mean, our kids come out of the gate very hardwired.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking
different. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Weeks or months. You can tell that little kids are woven so differently.
Yes.
And up until they're, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 or something, right? They're not thinking about, I want to be authentic. They're just doing their deal. And,
Yeah.
of course, when pain, starts happening, then they start questioning all of that, and anyway, you get punched in the mouth and then you're,
Yeah.
metaphorically, then you start questioning everything. Well, what's interesting though is most of us, we don't have an understanding of what identity is. So I don't know about you, but growing up, I grew up in the church, and I totally believe I had a relationship with the Lord, but it was clouded with a lot of nonsense. The only only phrase that I heard with regards to identity was the phrase, "Your identity is in Christ." But the way I internalized that is you're a sinner, a horrible sinner, in need of a savior. Come on in, but go sit in the corner and don't make too much noise.
Ah,
And that's that. So again, I'm not projecting on everybody else, but my story was more like, oh, I guess, all right, I'm a bad person. I need a savior. And the truth of the matter is I'm, man, you know, I'm a wretch. That's all there is to it. And we can get into the weeds there. But
yeah.
so, and I totally believe that
Yeah.
but here's the fascinating thing is, when you understand, the author and really in his true form, his true nature, right? That he is king, the one who made lightning and tigers and tornadoes and Neptune,
Yeah.
made a people for his own good pleasure. And he says, you are my image bearers.
Yes.
Well, then identity starts to make sense.
Yes, that's right.
But then it's okay, well, we've got, billions of people over thousands of years who kind of make up, this image, right?
Right.
Well, so when you start identifying your own authenticity, right, your own uniqueness inside of that body, as it were,
Yeah.
man, things start getting really interesting. And the vagary, this vague idea of what it means to be me, what it means to be a man, my sense of purpose and stuff starts to get really clear.
Yeah.
So Dr. Andy just has a really simple framework that he walks people through that just helps them to identify, right? Identity,
Yeah.
the
Identity.
things that are truest about, my nature. What are
Yeah.
my values? What are my convictions? What are my virtues? What are the things that give my goosebumps?
Yeah.
What breaks my heart? What makes me furious? What am I willing to fight for, die for? Just all of that stuff. And he has such a wonderful way of just basically saying, let me introduce you to yourself.
Yeah. That's great.
And
Wow. Yeah.
so anyway, that's a lot to say. This is grit and resiliency. Life is hard, right?
Yes.
And if you're not a person who understands that resiliency is getting up quicker, and the
Yeah.
reason why you're getting up quicker, and grit is doing hard things over a long period of time because it's worth it.
That's right.
Whatever is on the other side of that hill is worth it. And grit is about traction. But guess what? The traction comes from that internal compass. It comes from my soul.
I
And
love, I love your iron sharpens iron mastermind. I love that whole.
Yeah.
So not to interrupt you, but you reminded me of it when I saw that. It was like, yeah, that's so true. And doing hard things. Yeah.
So
yeah.
anyway, it's one of the things I'm passionate about is really this idea of, a guardian looking at his, I don't care if it's a coach looking at the players or a father looking at their son or daughter and saying, it's kind of like this. It's holding up a mirror and saying, do you see what I see?
Yeah.
Do you see the gold and the riches and the beauty that I see in you? I'm going to get behind that.
That's where I'm at.
And
I'm often, and so you're a young man. So listen, I'm 66 and I couldn't be more energetic, full of life, and feel like I got 800 things I need to do. Look at what David Osk is doing. I should be doing more.
No.
And I'm just like, God, do you people know that, at least in this human form, you're dying? I mean, I'm like, why am I so joyous? Yeah, I have plenty of reasons I could be depressed and down, and certainly at times I am. But, when I think about people that are not here anymore, I'm thinking in their honor, I'm going to live while I'm here today. And so that's why I bring the energy to it, just because I'm so thankful And as we get older, and you're probably almost to that age, you see people around you even younger that have gone. And so I'm living with passion every day, and I'm being joyous, in all things. Yeah, so
I can tell.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, and it's just it gets habituated, right? I mean, I have my down times, but now that I've practiced it, now it's more my default position than otherwise.
Yeah, I get it. It's an interesting thing. This idea of having a down day and an up day, right?
Yeah, one
requires the other. You
does.
You can't have an up day unless there's a down day. And
no, if I wasn't, and my weakness would be too emotional or sensitive, because if I wasn't that way, then I wouldn't be caring and loving. I would be shut off. Yeah. So because I can cry during a commercial. So sometimes they're so good. So in that regard, I want to always be open to feelings and not shut down and shut that out, because we could do it. You find people that have turned away. I don't want to get there. And so you have to guard that, right? You got to be on guard for those kind of things.
Yeah, man, I like that a lot. It's interesting when I was talking to, Dr. Andy about like just the resilience piece. What's fascinating is I like, or he uses analogy. He says resilience is like a ball, and it has a predetermined spec, right? It's a circumference you can measure, and all this stuff. And when you bounce it on the ground for a split second, right, it loses its shape, but then it bounces back to a predetermined place. Yeah. And what is really fascinating about understanding resiliency, and going back to not just a what but a who, right? You're going back to you. It's fascinating that you get to then predetermine, like on your good days, right? You would be on a good day and say, hey, wait a second. If I'm having a bad day, I'm not just getting up for the sake of getting up. I'm getting up because I'm a person who is on mission. I know exactly who I am, what my purpose is, what dent in the universe, as it were, that I want to have. And you have real clarity on that kind of stuff. And that's where resiliency starts to look like something, as opposed to I'm going to get up because I'm just embarrassed by being down, and I don't want people to think that I'm, an idiot or something. You know what I mean? There's a big shift where you have that inner locus of control, as opposed to I want to people please or not look foolish in front of other people.
Remember Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations, he said, although I'd love to lay here under the covers, basically I'm paraphrasing, I need to get out of bed and do my job as a human and get to doing what I'm supposed to be doing. The birds are doing what they're doing. The bees are doing what they're doing. I need to be doing my job as a human. I got into philosophy. And, at a time I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be reading the philosophers. I mean, that's not Christian. But then I was reading St. Thomas Aquinas, and of course he liked Aristotle, and he was attacked for it. And he said, hey, listen, all truth is God's truth. So, I should be free to look at those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love it. I'm going to start using, I like that analogy, the ball, because it bounces back from the shape that it temporarily was pushed into. But I play a lot of tennis, right? Yeah. So I'm thinking of the tennis racket, right? The tennis racket, the strings are in such a way that they give, and the more that they can give, when they return back to where they were before, they have a better influence on the ball and what's going to happen. Anyways, you just brought that to my attention. I could use that analogy.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's interesting. The imagery around some of these things really helps us to understand it, And I mean, it's so funny. Of course, in Scripture, God, Jesus told.
That's what Jesus did, right? You guys are fishermen. Let me talk to you in your language. In the fisher world, this is what I need you to be doing, right? Be fishers of men.
Yeah, it really helps. Yeah, it really helps to understand that, and our vocabulary, and assimilate that stuff.
Are you? So where can I find your music? Where can anybody find your music? I'd like to give those links also in the descriptions.
Yeah. So if you just search David Ask, and again, my last name is ASK, like ask. But I'm on iTunes and Spotify and all the music sites, as well as I've got a few things on YouTube and so on. But it's fun to be creative.
Yeah. Do you enjoy performing?
I absolutely. We actually here's what's fun. My daughter is first chair violinist in the Vanderbilt Children's Orchestra,
What? Oh my
and
goodness.
yeah, she's amazing. So Friday night, we actually did I'm sorry, Sunday night we did a concert at someone's house down in Brentwood, Tennessee, just south of Nashville, as a fundraiser for Kate's trip to Germany and Austria this
Oh my
July.
God, that's awesome.
And she has also, by the way, joined me on stages that I can't mention live on the air. And I joke around, by the way, she's this little cute, blonde 17-year-old. And I always tell people she's my hired gun. So
Yeah.
she's just awesome.
Do you play any instrument yourself?
I don't. It's funny. My mom, of course, taught piano and a little bit of
Yeah.
violin, guitar, and all that. And I just didn't want anything to do with it growing up. It wasn't cool, right? I wanted to be out playing golf or football or something. And then really I realized, man, I can actually sing, when I was
Yeah.
15, 16, and I never really picked it up after that. So,
Man, can you sing? I was always fascinated with the violin for some reason. I almost thought of taking lessons. Well, that's very hard to learn, and you probably shouldn't try that. But but maybe I will anyways. Or maybe I'll do piano because piano you can get a keyboard and you can put a headset and not bother anybody and learn
yeah.
and sit down anywhere. But I'm always I just I believed in it already. But then more I'm kind of studying things that to be constantly learning is so important.
Yeah, it really is. And I think the not everybody, of course, has that musical bug.
Right? Yeah.
But I don't think anybody can deny that it is a language, and it's the
Yeah.
language. It's like poetry, right? It's the language of the heart, and there's so many times that, a particular song or, just a melody will come on and it cracks something open in you that I'll just say that just needed to be cracked open.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's like a can opener to your soul.
It is. Oh my! The music is just creates. Man, there's not too many things. Like perfume is one of those things that goes right to your brain and creates a memory or an emotion.
Yeah.
But music does the same thing immediately. It creates an emotion in you. It's just, and then you can see that. If you just take music from something you're watching on TV, that makes the scene totally different. They've done that, right? Where they put different themes of music to a scene, and it changes how you're receiving it.
Yeah. And here's something else. I love this idea of and sometimes if I'm ever speaking in front of a group of people, I'll ask people, what soundtrack is playing inside of you? Predominantly. Like what is that? What is the music that plays in you? And again, we all have moments, but what's the predominant, song? And I'll have people kind of write down, some people will write down, Dances with Wolves or Braveheart or, and then once in a while, we'll get people that write down some songs that are just like, oh, that's, it's painful. And or it's just raucous or something, And but I like the gauging the temperature inside of somebody by asking, what's the music that plays in you most of the time?
That's a good question to ask people. What kind of music do you like? What's the music you like to listen to, or is it Christian or all over the place?
It's funny. I go all over the map. I of course grew up in a really conservative home where we listened to quote unquote Christian music. And here's the funny thing though, is I've kind of changed my view of that in some ways. I feel like, the entire counsel of Scripture talks about everything from war. I mean, graphic here, to a woman's breasts.
Right.
Why can't we sing about that?
Exactly.
And
yeah.
So again, you will find, whether it's from Song of Solomon or imagery from Psalms for that matter, you'll find truth, beauty, strength, dignity, the pictures that are painted that speak to the longing of the human heart for connection and love and touch.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'll be honest, I love singing about every bit of it. If you go my latest record, What a Perfect Day, talks about everything from just ooey gooey love, to for instance, I recorded the song Pia Jesu, which is Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote that, and it's just the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world.
Wow,
and
that's
and
awesome.
I like singing about all of it.
Yeah. How do you like? You're in Nashville, right?
Yeah,
How do
yeah.
you like that? That must be exciting.
It's a great place. It's funny because I moved here about a year after I graduated high school, so I've been here. Well, June will be 30 years,
Oh my God.
and yeah, I'll be 50 years old next month, and it instantly felt like home. It's such a wonderful place, and granted, it's grown substantially since I moved
Yeah.
here.
Wow.
At the same time, it's not New York or Atlanta or Chicago or something, and
Yeah.
we just absolutely love living here.
Great. Oh yeah. We moved to Florida in 2020. We just love it. We're right on the beach here. It's beautiful on the Space Coast where we see all
Nice.
the launches we're near the Space Force and
That's cool.
Cocoa Beach. And yeah, it's awesome, man. It's great. And we have a summer place in the Thousand Islands in upstate New York, so it's easy to go back and forth from.
Fantastic.
So yeah. But
That's great.
I have to stop in Tennessee. I drive through there on the way up on 81, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I'll have to check that out. So what's your main God, you got businesses going, speaking, coaching, right? And mastermind. And how big is the mastermind? That's the iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, so here's what's really neat. So Dave Ramsey, the financial coach, he had a mastermind back in the day that had I think 10 guys in it, and when they met for I think 25 years, and when that group kind of had its season, one of the guys in the group, Aaron Walker, started Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind, and I've been in a part of ISI for 6 years now, and
Wow.
I lead two of those groups, and it's been life changing. And honestly, people listening right now might be thinking, a mastermind, what the heck is that? And basically, it's ISI is a group of guys that get together and just help each
Yeah.
other win. Just help each other win. I mean, I have a virtual board of directors for my business, as it were, and a band of brothers for my personal life, and it's been life changing.
So you have several masterminds. Of course, I know about mastermind from Napoleon Hill and Law of
Yeah,
Success, right? I mean, back in the
yeah,
1930s, he talked about that of a group getting together. You become more powerful than the individual. And so, man, I think that's great. Oh my goodness.
yeah. And you become, we always hear, I forget who said it originally, but you become like the top five people you
People you
spend the
hang
most.
around. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I
And
try
we
to
know,
do that. I try to have like in my circle a couple of people that I could reach down and pull up, some that are
yeah,
kind of equal, and then a couple that are a couple clicks above, right?
yeah. It's a funny thing. Like, when we're parents, right? We know that is a law like gravity, because we don't want our kids getting stuck with the wrong crowd.
Yeah, that's so
And
true. Yeah.
and as we get older, we kind of forget about that, and we just kind of let things happen and slide into stuff. So I think the intentionality around who you let into that inner circle
Yeah.
is more important than almost any decision that you make. And even biblically, right, in the counsel of many, there's safety.
Yes.
And my my group, my main group that I'm a part of, these guys are going to be my pallbearers. Like
Yeah.
I would take a bullet for every one of them, and
Wow.
they know everything about me,
That's
everything,
great.
right?
Good.
And I trust them. If I drop dead today, they would be here to help my family.
That do you guys meet on Zoom or how do you, because I'm assuming people are all over?
Yeah, we've got, I think, guys in 5 countries. So yeah, we meet Zoom every week, and then twice a year at least. There's two main get-togethers. We get together in the fall and spring, and then once in a while we'll do a meetup somewhere else as well.
How would you suggest I start a mastermind?
What's funny is actually Aaron Walker sells a playbook,
Oh,
that
what?
basically just walks you through how to do that, and it's a bit more.
Can I get that book?
Um,
What's
yeah,
his
yeah,
name? Aaron Walker? What?
yeah. If you just go to viewfromthetop.com, you can reach out to him that way. But it's I gotta say, we pay a pretty good chunk to be a part of this, and it's
Yeah, I think that's important because people need to have skin in the game and to be invested in it.
well. And here's the funny thing, if it were free, right, you'd have a lot of people that show up just to would want to receive, and
Yeah.
they're so. What's interesting about this is it attracts a certain
Yeah.
personality of someone who just has a kind of a generous spirit. Like
Yeah.
their radar is always up for helping and connecting dots and encouraging and lifting up and so on. And yeah, it's amazing the type of person that is attracted to a group like this and is willing to spend 7,000-8,000 a year to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, you find people will come into your sphere, right? And you can tell right away that they're just like, they're always takers, right? They're not putting anything in to the relationship, and you got to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Me, my wife, and I know you're the same. You're a servant leader for sure. Because we're trying to outserve each other all the time, So I battle it out, I mean, when you come to me, how can I serve David Osk? That's my mission right now. If we're talking,
can you imagine if everybody felt that way? Like, I mean, the scripture says, outdo one another in showing honor.
Oh, I haven't read that part. That's something I got to read. The outdo one another in showing honor.
I mean, can you imagine if that was everybody's, modus operandi, right? And that was when they got up in the morning, especially marriage, right? Hey, guess what, sweetheart? I'm going to outdo you today. Get out of my way. And, oh, no, you're not. As opposed to, just sucking the life out of each other. I mean, golly.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And we have such a great relationship. I learned from Tony Robbins, and my wife did too, right? So on the other hand, we learned, because since you know how you get, it's almost unfair. You get so much more back from giving and helping than you put out. It's addictive. And so, you help people out, you treat them, you let me take you out or pay for your dinner, lunch, or breakfast or whatever. But then we tend to not, when someone tries to do it for us, we tell, no, that's okay. But now I've learned, why am I going to rob them of the pleasure of giving? So now I allow them to do it because I know the pleasure I get in doing it. So
absolutely. But here's a funny thing too, where the verse where it says it's better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
We often think about that as, well, somehow I've got to be selfless and I've got to be a giver and all this, kind of have to, shoulds and all that nonsense. Nope. It's just simply better. Like chocolate's better than vanilla. It's just better.
It's just better. It's just a better choice.
It just feels better. It works better. When you give, everything in your whole life just starts working better.
What's your main, are you coaching or what's your main focus now of your businesses really?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. I remember a few years ago, I read the book, Who Not How.
Yeah.
And it really has started shifting my thinking with regards to who do I need on my team, to live that. Well, let me reference another book here, the Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. He talks about that top 10% of your essence, that he calls it the zone of genius.
Yeah.
And most people operate in their zone of competence.
Yeah.
But largely, that's what I've been doing here up until just the last few years. And I realized if I want to operate in this zone of genius area, where my intellect and my heart are really connected in a missional way, I've got to have the right who's on my team to, keep other things afloat.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a better job lately about, figuring that out. And what does that look like? What does it look like to get the right who's and the right seat on the bus, to keep those other endeavors going. And at the same time, be able to focus on what I'm really passionate about, which is the Guardians of Grit. Honestly, I've got a whole lot of other stuff that hey, by the way, let's you and I circle back in July, because I'll have a bunch of other stuff to share with you. But one of those things is ofcourseIam.com. It's not launched yet, but we've got a lot of things that we're really excited about and working on. And I've actually put together a pretty good team to start that. And so I'm pretty excited about, Guardians of Grit and this idea of just introducing people to themselves, so that they can establish what is it that you believe spiritually, mentally, physically, just all that stuff. Get really, really clear on that, and then help the people under your care do the same thing, but in a really clear, intrinsically motivating way, as opposed to the survival mode, people pleasing, type, motivation.
Yeah, and, I agree. And I, not to interrupt you, but I was, so I know I did stand-up comedy for 25, I was a cop by day, comedian by night. But then I would, and of course my police audience who knew me, it always went fantastic. But, sometimes I would, because I had a teacher who told me, no, you should be authentic, because, you have something most comedians don't have, a real life that you can draw from. It's unique. It's okay. Because I didn't want to say that I was a cop. So then I started telling people and telling those stories. But I could do like 40 minutes and then people would come by after. You're not really a cop, right? I mean, because they just wouldn't buy me.
Yeah.
And so people are like, you really shouldn't smile. You should come out and start yelling at people. And I'm thinking, but that's not me. I wasn't like that in uniform. Why am I going to pretend? You know what I mean? That's not my essence. I mean, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I was the same way. Yeah.
That's really gutsy. So being a stand-up comic that's another level of grit right there. You got to have some guts to stand up and do that. It's learning and singing a song and so on is one thing, or memorizing lines or whatever. But I got to say, that's really impressive that you did that for that many years.
Well, there must have been something godly given, because I used to watch these comedians on TV when I was a kid with my mom. And then I would try to make people laugh in school. So I actually would do those routines in front of the class, and then actually people would tell substitute teachers that, hey, if you give Cliff 10 minutes at the end of class, we won't give you a hard time, right? And so I would go to weddings. I wonder if they'll let me do 10 minutes. So I never had the fear. I always had the desire too of being in front of a crowd and speaking. So that never came into play really. So although I've been nervous before, it's been a nervous energy. When somebody put it, I have butterflies, but they fly in formation, right? So, so I never had that, or really was lacking the courage. I, in fact, would have wanted more stage time, but
good for you. That's
but
incredible.
It definitely wasn't me. I don't know. I've kind of, before COVID, I stopped really doing comedy. I just felt it wasn't what I should be doing right now. And so I always loved doing this. Yeah. And I always wanted to. As a matter of fact, the headliner that I went around with, so when you're doing stand-up on the circuit, as it was,
okay.
Now most comedians make a lot of money, and most of the money doing the cruise ships, and it's created a whole new, job of availability for comedians. But doing the club circuit was, where was I going with this? What was my point?
So the person you were headlining with.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. I lost my train of thought. I was thinking too far ahead. So anyways, what happens was the headliner, the weekend or the Friday before the weekend shows, usually the club owner is giving tickets away. So the local radio station, probably in Nashville, they do this, and they have the comedian come on and they talk about where you're playing, and, we're giving away some tickets. And so anyways, he asked me, he goes, hey, would you like to come on the radio with me? And I go, yeah. And so he... usually the opener doesn't go on with you, but he had me come into the radio room with him, and man, that live radio and just not knowing when to jump in. It's live, you got to be funny, but and so I loved it. And so this is kind of a way. There's no gatekeeper. I'm creating my own radio station, my own TV station, and so it's just natural.
That's awesome, man. That's cool.
So now I think I heard you correctly. You will agree to come back and spend some time with me again?
And you got it. Absolutely.
Oh, that'll be great, because I can't wait to get that book. Guardians of Grit is going to be the new one, correct?
It is, yeah.
And do you have one out now? Or?
Well, no, I've got the children's book, The Fire and Ice, The Very Scary Noise in the Trunk is a book I did several years ago. It's on Amazon. The publisher has it on Amazon right now. And you can get it on their website, Taylor and Seal Publishing. But I'm pretty excited about the new one here. It's,
I like writing too. I got a couple books out there. So davidask.com, is that okay to send people there? And everything's, I love your website. You got it. Thanks. Listen, everybody, please go there and just listen to the testimonials. When you have a group of people that speak from the heart, as these men did in talking about you, it was very humbly I was honored to have you on the show, brother.
Thank you. This is a thrill and a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. So any final words? Otherwise, stay after for the debriefing. And I'm going to have you back for sure when your book comes out. And I would send anybody to davidask.com. And I don't think StatGuard Plus needs any advertising. They're available in Lowe's and Home Depot. And man, you're the epitome of, hey, idea to the shelf. Anybody can do it. Ideology, that's a great way to start a business.
It's funny. I'll leave you with two things. Mark,
Please.
my company is Chorum Global, CHORUM, chorumglobal.com. And our tagline is research to revenue.
Research to revenue. I love that.
We love product development. And but then I'll leave you with this on a personal note. My favorite quote recently here is by Benjamin Disraeli, a former PM of England back in the 1800s. And he says,
I know him.
The greatest good you can do for another is not to share with him your riches, but to reveal to him his own. And
Yes.
I just love that idea, right? Especially if you're a dad, look at your kids and hold up a mirror to them and just point out the
Yes.
riches, the gold in them. They know their faults. Point out the beauty, point out the strength and the dignity and the honor, and name it and pull it out of them and let them look at it. That's what they're longing for. That's how to love somebody.
God bless you, brother. This has been wonderful. I'm going to be respectful of your time, and you have, I think we've put out some great value there in just our conversation. And so everybody go to davidosk.com. You got to hear him sing, please. I'm going to have the link to the YouTube channel, to the song, the prayer, the duet that he did. It's beautiful. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. You know what to do. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, subscribe. It tells the computers that people are interacting. They'll show it to more people. David, hang around, brother. Thanks again.
I'll do it. Thanks.